Joining me now from Washington, John Dickerson, CBS News chief Washington correspondent and anchor of Face the Nation. John, I was struck by your interview, the fact that the North Korean leader, Kim Jong-un, has never directly criticized by name the president of the United States. But we heard in your interview, the president actually called Kim Jong-un a smart cookie. Why the praise?
Yeah, Margaret and Major both made a point of pointing that out, that you can imagine that what the president is trying to do is send a little message there, make a little connection with the North Korean leader as a way of de-escalating, as a way of basically, if there's going to be de-escalation, it is going to require a certain saving of face for the North Korean leader. And the respect that the president's comments displayed there could be a part of creating an off-ramp to get away from the tensions that we're seeing now.
And on healthcare, President Trump said that an Obamacare replacement bill would have coverage for pre-existing conditions, so important to so many Americans. Does that square with what we're hearing on Capitol Hill from the Republican Party?
Well, yes and no. No, in the sense that they are one of the arrangements that's been discussed as they try to get the majority votes for health care in the House is making the coverage of pre-existing conditions up to the states and how the states want to handle those. Now, there might be some guarantees about what the states have to provide, but those guarantees, as most analysts look at them, are guarantees of access and not of price. And so what happens is, or not of coverage, I should say. So what happens is you can have access to a plan that's just so expensive that you can't get it. And so the question of pre-existing conditions and whether they're covered is one piece of it, and then there's the price piece as well. Just trying to get the president. Really, the initial question was getting the president to talk about the price piece, which is, will health care be available and be affordable to the people who support him? That was basically a bottom line for him in the negotiations. He said that pre-existing conditions would meet those issues. It doesn't really. And so still many things unresolved in what and how this bill will meet the president's test for it.
And you also had a chance to return with the president to a campaign-style rally in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. What did you gather from his supporters about their impression of his first 100 days? Well,
his supporters love what the president is doing because he's in there fighting for them. And so as long as they still see him in the fight, they're thrilled with what he's doing. He's still talking about the issues they care about, and he is doing what he promised, which is that he's in there fighting for them. And to the extent that he's had problems, the extent that he is bedeviled by a critical press or by even members of his own party, that's proof of how hard he's working. Because he's fighting against the awful bureaucracy of Washington and all the things that made those people so disappointed in their federal government in the first place. And so what some people would see as a lack of achievement, his supporters see not as they chalk it up to the Washington blob that he's trying to beat through as he fights on their behalf.
Unlike the presidents who have come before him, he's never served in public office. What has he said that he's learned about governing?
Well, he hasn't. Yeah, I guess to the extent, at first he said, well, he's learned that the media is dishonest, which is been a constant refrain for him for the last couple of years. But what he said he learned is that things take longer than he thought. It's slower. The process is slower, particularly in the Senate. All presidents feel constrained by the courts and by Congress. They come into the office thinking they're going to be able to, as Wilson said, be as big a man as he wants to be. That's what he said about the presidency, that a president can be as big a man as he wants to be. And then Wilson actually got into office, and what did he do? He complained about the Senate and the little men in the Senate who were keeping him from doing what he wanted to do. So this is a traditional thing with presidents. So in some sense, Donald Trump is playing to the previous experiences presidents have had. He is a little bit less schooled in the separation of powers than maybe some previous presidents, though. So he sees it as obstacles that can be removed, whereas some people see it as the genius of the American system designed so many years ago.
John Dickerson, host of Face the Nation. Great interview, John. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Trina.